This is Earl Nightingale, speaking to you from a quiet, wood-paneled studio, where the air carries the faint scent of smoke and the truths of life glow like embers in a hearth, a reel-to-reel spinning slowly, a red light steady in the dawn, calling to those who sit alone in the stillness, their hearts poised on the edge of a future they have yet to claim. Before we embark on this revelation, a journey that may unveil the silent thoughts that shape your wealth, that may kindle a furnace in the quiet of your soul, that may guide you to a life transformed by the power of your mind, I extend a heartfelt invitation to join our fellowship of visionaries. These are the souls who dare to question the beliefs they've inherited, who burn with the gentle flame of awareness, who refuse to live as shadows of someone else's map. If this message stirs your heart, if it lights a spark in the silence of your mind, I urge you to share it by subscribing to this program. Write to us, join our great conversation, and let us know you stand with us by leaving your mark of approval. Your voice strengthens this circle, and together we can forge a brotherhood of those who see the truth, who speak the truth, who live the truth. Now, settle in, for we speak of a truth so profound, so radiant, it has been whispered through the ages, feared by those who would keep you bound, yet waiting for you to claim it. The millionaire mindset, my friends, is not a treasure chest. It is a furnace, and the first spark begins with a thought. This is the seed that grows into a fortune, the fire that lights the way, the compass that steers your soul. Will you hear it? Will you heed it? Will you become it? The choice is yours, and the moment is now. Wealth does not begin in the pocket. It begins in the mind. This truth, my friends, is as ancient as the stones of forgotten cities, as simple as a single note from a shepherd's flute, yet as profound as a storm breaking over a silent sea. Most men do not earn their thoughts about money, work, or worth. They inherit them, like old garments worn without question, heavy with the dust of generations, patched with the fears of those who came before. Their beliefs are not their own, but borrowed, their dreams not kindled, but dimmed, their lives not shaped, but drifted. They toil in fields they did not plant, sail by stars they did not chart, build with tools they did not forge, never pausing to ask, whose map am I following? Whose gold am I seeking? This truth began as a whisper, soft as a breeze through an ancient grove, a quiet stirring in the soul. There must be more than this. Passed from merchant to sailor in the glow of a harbor dawn, from poet to farmer in the stillness of a harvest field, from sage to cobbler in the flicker of a workshop lamp, until it grew, swelling like a river breaking its banks, resounding like thunder, awakening those who dared to listen, reshaping their lives with the power of a mind set free. Picture a village, its streets cloaked in the haze of a smoky morning, its people moving in rhythm with the toll of a distant bell, their days measured by tasks they did not choose, their dreams bound by beliefs they did not forge. Into this village comes a wanderer, his eyes alight with a fire that pierces the fog, his voice carrying a message that stirs the air like a wind before a storm. He speaks of the mind, not as a follower, but as a creator, a mind enslaved not by poverty, but by thought, a mind that can be freed by a single act of vision, to think like a steward of wealth, to plant a seed of abundance, to light a furnace of purpose. The villagers pause, their hearts quickening, their eyes lifting from the ground to the stars. But the keepers of order grow uneasy. These words, they declare, are too bold, too unsettling, too bright. They threaten the rhythm of the village, the certainty of its harvest, the silence of its drift. And so, they hush the wanderer. They urge the people to forget his words, to return to their plows, their looms, their ledgers, to let the bell dictate their lives, to let the fog of borrowed belief settle over their souls. But truth, my friends, is not so easily silenced. It is like a seed that, once planted, cannot be uprooted, like a fire that, once kindled, cannot be quenched, like a river that, once loosed, cannot be dammed, like a star that, once risen, cannot be veiled. The wanderer's words spread, whispered in the glow of hearths, shared in the quiet of fields, carried on the winds that sweep across oceans and plains, etched into the hearts of those who dare to listen. They reached the farmer, his hands deep in the earth, his heart stirred by the possibility of planting not just crops, but a vision of abundance, of thinking like a steward of wealth, of reshaping his life with the furnace of his mind. They reached the seamstress, her needle flashing in the lamplight, her soul awakened to the dream of stitching not just garments, but a belief in her own worth, of forging a life of beauty with the fire of her thoughts. They reached the merchant, his shop a hub of trade, his heart stirred by the vision of building not just profit, but a legacy of richness, of thinking like a king even in a humble stall. They reached the poet, her pen poised above a blank page, her mind ignited by the call to write not just verses, but a new map for her soul, to think like a creator of wealth in the silence of her chamber. They reached the sailor, his ship tethered to the harbor, his heart stirred by the possibility of steering not just seas, but a course of prosperity, of thinking like a captain of his own destiny. They reached the blacksmith, his hammer ringing in the forge, his soul awakened to the vision of shaping not just iron, but a life of abundance with the fire of his mind. These words, once a whisper, became thunder, a resounding call that pierced the fog of conformity, that shattered the chains of inherited beliefs, that lit a furnace in the souls of those who heard them. I shared a fragment of this truth years ago in a message called The Strangest Secret, when I said, we become what we think about most of the time, and that's the strangest secret. These words, so simple yet so profound, are the spark that ignites the millionaire mindset, the seed that grows into a fortune, the thunder that can awaken you, if you will hear them, if you will speak them, if you will live them. Do you hear that whisper in the quiet of your heart, listener? Do you feel its gentle nudge, its persistent call, its promise of transformation? Will you let it pass like a breeze through the fields, or will you let it become thunder, shaking the foundations of your life, lighting a fire that no darkness can extinguish? The journey to wealth begins not with gold, my friends, nor with labor, nor with the clamor of the marketplace, but with a forgotten seed, the seed of awareness, planted deep within your soul at birth, waiting to be watered with courage, nourished with vision, lit with faith, tended with purpose. This seed is the root truth. All fortune begins in the mind, in the vision you hold, in the garden you water within. A man's external world, his fields, his shop, his ledger, is but a reflection of the inner world he never sees, a harvest grown from thoughts he never questions, a map drawn by hands he never chose. Awareness is the key that rusts in the pocket of every man. The moment he realizes he's been following someone else's map, seeking someone else's gold, living by beliefs he did not forge. It is the spark that lights the furnace of change, the plow that breaks the soil of possibility, the compass that points to a life of abundance. Yet how forgotten, how neglected, how buried deep this seed lies. Beneath the weight of routine, it waits, smothered by the fog of habit, dimmed by the fear of questioning, hidden by a blindfold worn so long it feels like skin. Picture a man, his days spent in a quiet village, his hands busy with tasks he does not question, his heart heavy with a longing he cannot name. He believes his thoughts are his own, yet they are borrowed. Beliefs about money shaped by schoolmasters who taught him to toil, about work shaped by voices that told him to stay small, about worth shaped by hands that placed a blindfold over his eyes, so familiar he mistook it for his own flesh. He lives his life never realizing he follows a map to someone else's gold, never seeing that the key lies in the awareness he fears to claim, never planting the seed that could set him free. Awareness is the courage to see the map you've been handed, to pause in the rhythm of your days, to ask, whose beliefs shape my wealth? Whose path am I following? What might I become if I thought like a steward of abundance? Picture the cobbler, his hands worn from leather, his dreams buried beneath the weight of duty, believing his work must be humble, never questioning the blindfold of routine, never seeing the key to a richer life. He stitches without vision, and wonders why his shoes lack beauty, why his heart aches for more, why his life feels like a field unplowed. Picture the merchant, his shop a hub of trade, his spirit restless, believing his worth must be measured by others, never questioning the beliefs that bind him, never seeing the seed hidden in his own doubts. He barters without purpose, and wonders why his days feel hollow, why his soul remains a spark unlit, why his life feels like a river uncharted. Picture the farmer, his hands deep in the earth, his heart heavy with the weight of inherited patterns, believing his harvest must be small, never questioning the map of limitation, never seeing the plow of his own vision. He toils without abundance, and wonders why his fields yield little, why his soul remains barren, why his life feels like a garden unsown. The seed of awareness is within you, my friends, not in the world beyond. It is the plow that breaks new ground, the compass that points to wealth, the furnace that forges a new destiny. Yet how forgotten this seed remains, buried beneath the dust of a life unexamined, smothered by the voices that tell you to conform, to drift, to stay small. The world would have you believe that awareness is dangerous, that to question is folly, that to awaken is to risk the comfort of routine. But I tell you now, the wise know this truth. To live without awareness is to live in a cage, to follow a map to someone else's gold, to leave the seed of your soul unsown. Picture the poet, her chamber lit by a single lamp, her heart alive with verses unvoiced, who does not seek wealth in the applause of others, but in the quiet of her own awareness, planting a seed of vision that grows into a life of richness. Picture the sailor, his ship tethered to the harbor, his heart yearning for uncharted seas, who does not seek fortune in distant ports, but in the courage to think like a captain, planting a seed of abundance that guides him to new horizons. Picture the blacksmith, his hammer ringing in the forge, who does not seek wealth in the iron he shapes, but in the fire of his thoughts, planting a seed of purpose that blooms into a legacy. The seed is in the cobbler's will to craft his dreams, in the merchant's courage to build his worth, in the farmer's faith to plow new ground, in your power to awaken, to choose, to think like a millionaire. This seed is the spark that begins the journey, the moment you pause to ask, what if my thoughts could forge my wealth? What if I could plant a garden of abundance? What if I could light a furnace where once there was only ash? It is the realization that the map was never true, that the blindfold can be removed, that the key lies in your own hands. Do you feel that seed within you, listener? Do you sense its quiet presence, its gentle pulse, its promise of transformation? Will you nurture it, water it with courage, light it with vision, or will you let it lie dormant, buried beneath the weight of borrowed beliefs? This truth is not new, my friends, nor is it hidden. It is as old as the tides, as timeless as the stars that guide the sailor's way, as eternal as the fire that burns in the furnace of the heart, as enduring as the roots that anchor a garden, as boundless as the river that seeks the sea. The builders of every age knew it, lived it, built their lives upon it, leaving legacies that stand like the canals of Venice, like the columns of Rome, like the ships that crossed uncharted waters. The merchants of Venice, their stalls alive with the hum of trade, knew that wealth was not in the coin they held, but in the vision they forged, in the thoughts they shaped like a sculptor shapes clay. The generals of Rome, their armies marching beneath a crimson sky, knew that victory was not in the sword, but in the mind that planned, in the belief that saw triumph before the battle began. The tradesmen of Boston, their workshops lit by the glow of lanterns, knew that prosperity was not in the goods they sold, but in the thoughts they sowed, in the habits they built like a carpenter builds a home. The ship captains, staring into midnight storms, knew that their course was not merely a path through water, but a journey of the mind, a steering by inner stars, a choice to think like stewards of wealth even in the face of the abyss. The millionaire, my friends, is not the man with coin, but the man who, in poverty, already thinks like a king, who, in scarcity, already sows the seeds of abundance, who, in darkness, already lights the furnace of his soul. Consider the farmer, his fields a canvas of life, his hands deep in the soil, who knew that his wealth was not merely in his crops, but in his thoughts, thoughts of abundance, of stewardship, of a harvest that fed not just his village, but his soul. In poverty, he thought richly, and his fields grew green, his barns grew full, his life became a garden that bloomed through time. Picture the seamstress, her needle flashing in the lamplight, who knew that her wealth was not in the garment she sewed, but in her vision of beauty, of grace, of a life shaped by the fire of her thoughts. In humility, she thought grandly, and her creations clothed the hearts of those who wore them. Her name became a whisper of elegance, her life a furnace that burned through generations. Picture the merchant, his shop a bridge between nations, who knew that his wealth was not in the gold he traded, but in his belief in harmony, in legacy, in a mind that saw richness where others saw only barter. In simplicity, he thought boldly, and his markets became a beacon, his life a river that flowed to the sea. The builders knew this law. Thoughts forge reality, as surely as a blacksmith forges iron, as steadily as a gardener tends his soil, as faithfully as a sailor follows his compass. The poor man who thinks richly will soon rise, his life a garden that blooms with abundance, his soul a furnace that no poverty can dim. The rich man who thinks poorly will soon fall, his wealth a shadow that fades, his life a river that loses its course. As I said in The Strangest Secret, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. The builders knew this, my friends. They knew that the millionaire mindset is not a gift, but a choice, a seed planted in the mind, a fire kindled in the soul, a compass set to abundance. Do you sense the echo of their wisdom in your own heart? Listener, do you feel the call to think like they thought, to plant the seeds they planted, to light the furnace they kindled? The builders were not different from you. They were simply awake, their minds alive with visions of what could be, their hearts bold with the fire of purpose, their hands forging a life of wealth through the power of their thoughts. While others followed maps to someone else's gold, the builders drew their own, planting gardens where others saw barren soil, lighting furnaces where others saw only ash, steering by stars where others saw only fog. They knew that thought is not a shadow, but a force, not a follower, but a creator, not a cage, but a key. They knew that to think is to build, to envision is to become, to sow is to reap, to steer is to triumph. This truth was not reserved for the mighty, nor hidden from the humble. It was known to the farmer who thought of abundance and made it real, forging a fire that fed his village. It was known to the seamstress who thought of beauty and wove it into the world, kindling a furnace that burned through time. It was known to the merchant who thought of legacy and built it, sowing a garden that bloomed for generations. Will you join them, listener? Will you think as they thought, dream as they dreamed, act as they acted, sow as they sowed? If this message stirs your soul, join our fellowship. Write to us, share your thoughts, and let us know you're with us by leaving your mark of approval. Let us stand together as those who know the truth, as those who live the freedom, as those who forge the fire. Why, then, do so few awaken to this truth, while so many remain as they are, not building but drifting, not forging but following, not planting their own gardens, but wandering in the fog of someone else's map? The answer lies in the comfort of sameness, the quiet ache of safety that lulls the soul to sleep, the velvet chains of routine that bind the heart. Picture a vast sea, cloaked in twilight, where men and women row in circles, their eyes open but their souls blindfolded, singing old songs of scarcity, their oars moving in rhythm with a tide they never chose, unaware that the shore lies only one true stroke away. This is the life of the many, my friends, a life shaped by systems that cradle them to sleep, by habits that dull the mind, by beliefs that bury the soul. The schoolroom, with its rigid rows and dusty books, is like a forge that shapes not creators, but followers, teaching you to recite, to obey, to accept the map of limitation, not to question, not to dream, not to light the furnace in your soul. It fills your mind with beliefs about money, that it is scarce, that it is for others, that it is a master, not a servant, leaving your own garden barren, your own fire unlit. The office, with its endless tasks and silent toil, is like a ship adrift, demanding your time, not your vision, rewarding those who row in circles, chaining your spirit to the rhythm of captivity, locking your soul in a prison of sameness, a garden where no dreams grow. The village, with its quiet hearths and familiar paths, expects you to stay small, to recite the beliefs of those before you, to let your dreams fade like stars at dawn, to let your fire dim, to let your garden wither. Consider the blacksmith, taught to hammer the same iron as his fathers, to follow the same patterns, to avoid the risks of dreaming, to keep his fire low. The village depends on his tools, and so he is told to stay predictable, to silence his questions, to let his garden grow weeds, to leave his furnace unlit. He toils without vision and drifts through life, his heart heavy with unspoken longing, his mind dulled by the rhythm of routine, his soul a spark unlit, a seed unsown. Consider the merchant, urged to trade only what is safe, to follow the markets of others, to suppress his dreams of legacy, to let his fire smolder. The village needs his goods, and so he is kept in place, his scales moving in rhythm with repetition, his work fading like the coins he counts, his spirit confined to the gray silence of duty, his fire extinguished, his garden barren. Consider the farmer, taught to plow the same fields as his fathers, to sow the same seeds, to silence his visions of abundance, to let his fire dim. The village needs his harvest, and so he is bound, his plow moving in patterns not his own, his heart a river uncharted, his life a garden unplanted. These systems, my friends, are like a soft fog, gentle yet unyielding, keeping you safe from risk, but also from greatness, keeping you asleep while your dreams fade, while your fire dies, while your garden remains barren, your river uncharted. They lull you with the promise of comfort, of ease, of certainty. But comfort is the enemy of awareness, the thief of vision, the chain that binds your soul to a life of drift. These systems fear the awakened mind, my friends, for a man who awakens is a force unstoppable, a flame unquenchable, a tide uncontainable, a star undeniable, a river unyielding, a garden unbreakable. They fear a blacksmith who questions his patterns, who might forge tools that change his village, who might kindle a furnace that spreads. They fear a merchant who dreams of legacy, who might build markets that unite nations, who might light a fire that burns through time. They fear a farmer who envisions abundance, who might plant a garden that feeds the world, who might forge a fire that endures. An awakened mind questions the schoolroom, challenges the office, rewrites the village's map, lights a furnace that spreads, plants a garden that blooms. This is why most remain as they are, my friends, because waking is painful. The first step toward awareness is uncomfortable, like stepping from a warm hearth into a cold dawn, like lifting a lamp in a cellar and seeing the shadows you've lived with, like feeling the burn of truth before it heals. The world would have you believe that sameness is safety, that repetition is peace, that routine is home. But I tell you, as I said in Lead the Field, most people tiptoe through life, hoping to make it safely to death. Sameness is a cage, my friends, a fog where your dreams go to die, a chain that binds your soul, a garden that remains barren, a fire that remains unlit, a river that never finds its sea. Will you remain as you are, listener, or will you awaken? Will you let the fog hold you, or will you face the pain of awareness, planting your garden, lighting your furnace, steering by your own stars? And now, my friends, we come to the heart of this revelation, the seed that awakens, the key that unlocks, the fire that burns away the fog, the compass that steers you from the cage of borrowed beliefs to the freedom of a millionaire's mind. It is this. We become what we think about most of the time. Speak these words, my friends, and let them take root in your soul. Write them down, as you would a sacred vow, in the quiet of your chamber, by the light of a lamp, on a page that will become the blueprint of your wealth. Repeat them each dawn, each dusk, until they echo in your mind like the ring of a blacksmith's hammer, until they guide your thoughts like a sailor's compass, until they light your path like a furnace, until they forge your destiny like iron on an anvil. These are not mere words, my friends. They are a law, a principle, a force as sure as gravity, as constant as the sunrise, as eternal as the tides, as unyielding as the forge, as radiant as the star, as enduring as the garden, as boundless as the river. They are the key to reshaping your mind, to forging your wealth, to planting the seeds of abundance. Plant these words in the fertile soil of your mind. Water them with faith. Nurture them with action. Light them with courage. Forge them with purpose. And watch as your life becomes a garden of riches, a fortress of freedom, a river of prosperity, a furnace that no scarcity can dim. Picture the farmer, his fields barren, his hands heavy with the weight of toil, his heart once dim with the shadow of scarcity. He hears this truth, perhaps from a broadcast like this, and he writes it down. We become what we think about most of the time. It stirs him, like a wind lifting a seed, like a spark in dry tinder. He begins to think, not of limitation, but of abundance, to envision fields green with harvest, to shape his thoughts like a steward of wealth. Each day he repeats the words. Each furrow he plows with care. Each seed he plants with faith. And in time, his fields become a testament, his harvest a triumph, his life a garden that blooms with richness, a furnace kindled by the fire of his thoughts. Picture the seamstress, her shop a humble room, her hands swift with the needle, her days once a cycle of duty. She hears these words from a kind mentor, and they resonate, like the toll of a bell, like starlight breaking through the fog. She writes them down, she repeats them, and begins to think, not of simplicity, but of beauty, to envision garments that clothe the soul, to shape her thoughts like a creator of wealth. Each stitch she makes with care, each moment she invests in her vision, and her creations become a beacon, her name a whisper of grace, her life a furnace that burns through time. Picture the merchant, his stall small and plain, his heart once restless with the pursuit of survival. He hears these words from a passing trader, and they ignite him, like a hammer striking an anvil, like a tide turning. He writes them down, he repeats them, and begins to think, not of barter, but of legacy, to envision markets that unite hearts, to shape his thoughts like a king. His trade becomes a bridge, his life a river of purpose, his legacy a fire that endures. Picture the blacksmith, his forge dark and cold, his heart once heavy with the weight of routine. He hears these words by a fireside, and they awaken him, like a spark in dry grass, like a river breaking through stone. He writes them down, he repeats them, and begins to think, not of labor, but of mastery, to envision tools that change lives, to shape his thoughts like a steward of abundance. His hammer rings with purpose, his creations become a testament, his life a furnace that no darkness can quench. Picture the poet, her pen still, her dreams once buried beneath the weight of others' voices. She hears these words, and they stir her, like a star guiding her course, like a flame lighting her path. She writes them down, she repeats them, and begins to think, not of pleasing the crowd, but of truth, to envision verses that awaken, to shape her thoughts like a creator of wealth. Her lines become a constellation, her life a garden that blooms for centuries, her legacy a fire that no storm can extinguish. Picture the sailor, his ship tethered, his heart once dim with uncharted dreams. He hears these words from a fellow mariner, and they ignite him, like a spark in the night, like a tide turning. He writes them down, he repeats them, and begins to think, not of safe harbors, but of uncharted seas, to envision a course of prosperity, to shape his thoughts like a captain. His voyages become a triumph, his life a constellation, his legacy a fire that endures. These stories, my friends, are the lives of those who heard these words, who shaped their thoughts, who lit their furnaces, who forged their wealth. They are the men and women of no means who reshaped their world by reshaping the picture in their mind, who built lives of quiet majesty through the fire of their thoughts. Speak these words, my friends, and let them be your compass. Let them be the hammer that shapes your thoughts, for your thoughts are your wealth. Your thoughts sow your garden. Your thoughts kindle your furnace. Your thoughts forge your destiny. And now, my friend, we come to you, you who listen in the darkness, in the quiet of your room, late at night, your heart heavy, but alive with the faint glow of possibility, a solitary soul standing at the edge of new dawn, uncertain yet listening, ready to light the lamp within. I speak to you now, as if this were my final hour behind the microphone, as if these words are the last I might ever share, as if you stood in the silence of eternity, a son or daughter stepping into the vast unknown of your own future. You are not a shadow, not a drifter, not a follower bound to someone else's map, not a soul destined to seek someone else's gold, not a life condemned to fade. You are a creator, a dreamer, a farmer, a seamstress, a merchant, a blacksmith, a poet, a sailor, a force with the power to forge your wealth, to plant your garden, to kindle your furnace, to steer your ship, to write your truth, to follow your river to the stars. The truth you have heard tonight is yours to claim, to live, to sow, to forge, not as a storm that shakes the world overnight, but as a quiet spark, a single thought, repeated with purpose, that can transform your life into a garden of abundance, a river of prosperity, a furnace that no scarcity can dim. Do not let this truth slip away, my friend, like a whisper lost in the night, like a spark unlit, like a seed unplanted, like a river that never finds its sea. Choose one thought now, perhaps to envision abundance at dawn, to speak worth by lamplight, to shape your mind like a steward of wealth, and let it be the seed of your awakening. Speak it now, with courage, with faith, with the fire of your soul, with the light of your truth, with the strength of your will. Plant the seed, kindle the furnace, steer your ship, write your truth, follow your river, and let the world marvel at what you become. Your life is a furnace, not a cage, a garden, not a weed, a river, not a chain, a fire, not a flicker, a constellation, not a shadow. Will you light the spark tonight? Will you plant the seed now? This is Earl Nightingale, speaking to you not with farewell, but with a new beginning, a call to awaken, a new life to live, a garden to plant, a furnace to kindle, a river to sail. If this message has stirred your soul, join our fellowship. Write to us, share your thoughts, and let us know you're with us by leaving your mark. Together, let us stand as those who speak the truth, as those who live the freedom, as those who sow the seeds, as those who kindle the fires. The choice is yours, my friend, and the moment is now. The gold was never hidden in the ground. It was always buried in the mind.